how to become wise. Watching this video will not make you wise immediately. However, it will show you the foundations of wisdom so that you can pursue it. These are lessons from the wise king, King Solomon. The first thing I would like to say is karma is almost true. I think it recognizes that doing good brings good. This is from Proverbs. Whoever brings blessing will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. Secondly, it recognizes that doing evil brings evil. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. In reality, however, these things are probabilistic. So it's more like doing evil usually brings evil, or doing good usually brings good. So this is how wisdom actually works. You need an accurate understanding of the world. That's why I mentioned the karma thing. You need an accurate understanding of the world, and then you're able to make wise decisions. If you have an inaccurate understanding, you're going to make unwise decisions. Can one walk on hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So, knowing that hot coals, walking on them, will scorch you, this is an accurate understanding of the world. Hot coals, walking on them, scorch you. Similarly, an accurate understanding is going into your neighbor's wife will scorch you. This is how the world works. You have to note this to make wise decisions. Now, the fool will say, adultery, in this case, I think I can get away with it scot-free. Nothing'll happen. He's a fool because he has an inaccurate understanding of the world. Unfortunately, the world can be complicated. Not everything's so straightforward as this is. And so I have this rule of thumb for you from Proverbs. And it goes like this. The wise choice is always the moral choice. In other words, if it's immoral, it's not wise. It never will be wise to do something immoral. Wise dealing pretty much is equated with righteousness, justice, and equity. You see that right here. And we're talking morals by God's definition. Even if a fool says, well, I don't see anything wrong with adultery. You know what? That doesn't really matter because God created the world, not you. And God imbued wisdom into the world. You see here, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth. And also, when God marked out the foundations of the earth, wisdom was besides him like a master workman. Wisdom is weaved into the way the world works. There's a grain to the universe. If you go with the grain, you will have good outcomes. If you go against the grain, you'll typically have bad outcomes. I hope that makes sense. And this is why Solomon can say, the Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. It's like the wicked are cursed. It's like the righteous are blessed. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Do you see how the wise and righteous are paralleled, and the fool and the wicked are paralleled? That's because morality is deeply tied to wise decision making. This is also why Jesus can say, everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. So Jesus just finished giving moral lessons from the Sermon on the Mount. And pretty much he's saying, follow these moral teachings, do them, and you'll be wise. So really the key here is to be humble and not try to outsmart God. Don't think you will get away from the natural consequences of sin. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that he will also reap. This is in Galatians. You're a mocker of God if you think you can do something that he says is wrong and get away with it. On the other hand, this is what you should do. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. The fool, on the other hand, has to learn everything the hard way. I've seen this with countless people. I will sleep with whomever I want. I can cheat my way to the top. The fool thinks he can get away with this. He has to make every mistake before he recognizes that it's foolish. But his core issue, typically, isn't that he thinks this is wise or this is wise. His core issue is even deeper, and that is he lacks fear of the Lord. So, this is the real foundation of wisdom. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Quick note, fear of the Lord is generally understood to be a deep reverence, not necessarily a feeling of terror. Knowledge in Proverbs is typically kind of understanding of God's world. It's not like you're good at math if you fear the Lord. Why is it fear of the Lord leads to wisdom then? First, because God is the source of wisdom. Imagine you're seeking a healthy relationship. What's the wise thing to do? Should I have hookups, thruples, polyamory, etc.? You can spend an entire lifetime experimenting and leaving a wake of destruction behind you and ruining your life if you have to try every mistake on your own. There's going to be people who try swinging and they think, there's pros and cons, it's causing destruction, but maybe we just have to do it differently. And they never figure out how to have a healthy relationship because they don't recognize God. God gives us a shortcut, a roadmap into how we should have relationships. What he says is moral is also wise. I need you guys to understand this. And it's not just with relationships, it's with all sorts of things because God is the source of wisdom. Secondly, fear of God's approval instead of man's approval helps you make wise decisions. A fool will say, let's make mistakes. Let's do something dumb tonight. But a wise person will say, no, I don't really care about your peer pressure. I care about God's approval. Thirdly, reverence inspires obedience. This one's very important as well. I've had this exact conversation before to a non-Christian. This is me, this is a non-Christian. Hey, you're saying you want to get married one day. I think you're better off not sleeping around for the sake of your future marriage. You'll have greater marital satisfaction if you don't have a string of dozens of girls that you've slept with. And the response is pretty much, yeah, I think you're right, but I don't care. There's not an argument for, actually, no, I think I will have a net, more joyful life by sleeping around. It's more of, I just don't care. And this is the case for people who don't revere God. To be frank, if I didn't follow God, I probably wouldn't be trying either. Even though I recognize these decisions are foolish, I probably also just wouldn't care. And that's because reverence of God, fear of the Lord, inspires obedience. I'm going to try because I want to follow God. Fourthly, eternal perspective. Some decisions only make sense in light of eternity. Not considering eternity leads to foolish decisions. You'll notice that Paul pretty much says this. If in Christ we have hope in this life only, we are of all people most to be pitied. If this is not the reality, then Paul's decisions are foolish. However, if this is the reality, if there is eternity, then a whole new set of decisions is wise. And therefore, fear of the Lord is linked to having an eternal perspective. I'm going to have a next video for you guys eventually on wisdom because this is the beginning of wisdom. This is not all there is to wisdom. There is much more for us to learn. We just have the base here, the foundation, fear of the Lord.